This car behind me is the new car for President Emmanuel Macron, the President of France. This is here the new flagship of the French automotive industry, the DS numero 8, or just DS number 8. They now always write NO for numero in French, but you can also just say DS8. This is their new approach to bring back the glory of the French automotive industry, to be even a competitor to the German premium brands, Audi, BMW, Mercedes and so on, and also to fight off the Chinese manufacturers which are pushing their EVs also to the European market. But does it work? Can this be this French halo car? We're going to find out and also drive the DS8 for you. I'm Thomas, this is Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the DS8 or DS number 8 here with this illuminated front grille. It's an option. It's hard to see in daylight though, rather visible at night. Optional, you can get matrix LED, and here the daytime running light is vertical. That's also where the turning indicators appear. Different trims are available. This one here is already a higher trim called Étoile, and no, it has nothing to do with toilets or so on. This is French and stands for a star, so a shining star here, also with a possible two-tone paint. We can see it here, and it's really well done. You cannot really feel the transition or something like that, but of course you do not have to go for the two-tone paint. We also have another blue vehicle for you on display, for example. This one is called Crystal Pearl. And then side profile, the length is 4.82 meters or 190 inches, so a substantial length here. It looks on the one hand sedan-ish, then somehow higher crossover-ish, maybe a competitor to a Polestar 4, but it has a fastback trunk. Soon going to show that to you. And also here, these rear doors that are attached right there. So it's a very interesting thing to have the opening. Then 19 to 21 inch wheels. These are the biggest wheels, and if they are the biggest 21 inch wheels, these are then the forged wheels. That means that the 21 inch wheels are lighter than the 20 inch wheels. What about that? Yeah, I mean, it's a very central and unique profile. The door handles here, by the way, I can soon show that to you in detail. They fold in just when I have the car here on, and then they come out again, so that everything's on from the lights and so on. That looks funny, definitely. Usually you get front wheel drive as a base. Optional then all-wheel drive, as the version it is right here now, up to 350 horsepower, and the acceleration figures for the front wheel drive versions are just below 8 seconds, and here for the all-wheel drive version is at 5.4 seconds. Interesting, huge charging flap right here. There we go. Look at that. I think I've never seen such a large charging flap, but I mean, it's manual. That's all we need. We don't need like special electric charging flaps, and it does cover here also like from rain and snow, so might be a good idea. And also when you come from the cable from here or here, it doesn't block. It's not in your way when it opens like this, you know, so you can put the cable underneath. AC charging is 11 or later to come 22 kilowatt, and DC charging is at a 160 kilowatt peak. It's not too much, and the official charging figure they publish is 20 to 80% state of charge in under 30 minutes. But that means that 10 to 80% state of charge will be more than 30 minutes. So not super bad, but also nothing real special, so to speak. Let's talk about the batteries while we take a look here at this very central, unusual rear, also with this crystalline applications for the tail lamps. Then again, the vertical one from the design on the exterior, people thought, hey, that's really something different, something unique they put out in the market. Also look at here, DS Automobiles, you know, sister companies are Peugeot and Citroën, of course. DS derived from a Citroën brand. And here, number 8, and it's a real metal plate here, all-wheel drive badge here as well. This one here carries a 97 kilowatt hour battery. This is a large battery, and we'll see what concise range we can score with that. My first estimation would be some 500 kilometers or 300 miles as for the real world condition. 750 is the official figure, but these WLTP figures, they are often exaggerated, not really real world. But we'll find out more about that very soon for you. There's also a smaller battery in the entry-level version available at 74 kilowatt hours, and we'll later then talk about the prices. And my highlight for today is Leah cleaning the car for us, making the final finish to have the most beautiful shots here. Yeah, In the front here, by the way, active cooling flaps, so they only open when the cooling is needed. Pretty cool, and the overall CD value is 0.24, not too bad. And opening the front hood, I have to press it twice. Heat pump is standard. Is there any frunk? No, there is not, but at least it looks like they would be using that space here. And you see that the front hood is actually quite large, mainly of course also for the design reasons. So would be interested in your comments about the design of the vehicle. And for driving is very important. There is a base suspension for the small battery version, also the lower trim. Then you can switch to the higher battery version, as I said. And then if you go the big battery together with the A12 trim, from this one you start then automatically with the adaptive suspension, which also have this so-called active scan function. So it's if the camera sees a pothole ahead, then it's making the suspension a little bit softer to even out this pothole, that it doesn't get through your body. And also when you go for the sport mode, if you have the adaptive suspension, then it also gets a little bit stiffer. We'll test it in driving very soon. And this is now the special one-off presidential car. This is the car that President Macron really already has used, and I'll show you why it is a one-off piece. First of all, here you can see in the front grille we have the tricolor, the French flag, or the colors of the French flag, and also the special lights here. So a little bit French police alike, but with the tricolor colors there as well. And this is actually a DS8 convertible as well. You can see here with the soft top convertible opening, because he was already standing upright in the vehicle and then could wave to the crowd actually. And it has a special setup. And there's one rule: we can show the interior, but I'm not allowed to get inside and wave, because that's only for the president. Here, there are these door handles, or basically put at the seat, behind the seat, door handle style, because then you can, there's a special fabric inside as well to make it even more exclusive. And so he just stands there in the middle, holds on tight, and then can wave maybe with one hand and hold on tight with the other hand. By the way, in the rear there are more lights. You can see it right here. Again, to, attract some more attention. So very cool. Oh, here, Roma flag here, for example. So all across the vehicle, special flag details. And if you wonder where that idea from the brand name and from the two-tone paint came from, well, exactly from this one. This is the DS 1969, or La DS, like the goddess in French, and very, very iconic car. And based on that car, actually, from this whole idea, this luxury idea, they made the DS brand basically from the Citroën brand, made it an own standalone brand. And I think, especially here with this very, very same paint, is a nice setup to see this evolution in the whole brand from then to now. What do you think about that? This is the key fob. They are nothing special besides the DS logo. This is a typical Peugeot Citroën key fob basically. And then here the door handles, flush integration. Press open, or when you approach the vehicle they come out, or in again and when you close the vehicle. It usually works automatically when you approach the vehicle, or then the other thing, which now gets a little bit funny. So when you press them, you can also make them to come out, and then you could also theoretically put them in again and they react like this. Then it becomes a little bit ridiculous, but the sense is that they automatically pop out when you approach them. Then about the door closing sounds. It's actually pretty solid, like that. That's cool. And then here the rear doors, as I showed you earlier, attached right here, and also a very nice door closing sound. So that is quality then in the door finishing. And talking about doors and the finish, look at that. Everything covered in Alcantara. That's beautiful, and we hardly see that maybe in a Lamborghini Urus or something like that. Also here, very soft for your elbow, then with the high-grade leatherette covering. Interesting solution here to integrate the window levers, and that makes a good quality impression as well. Strange is that here, to close the door, you have the integrated handle there. Let's see how it works when we close the door very soon. Ambient lighting integration, and this is then here the optional focal sound system, 14 speakers, and they make it really visual. Doors is here hard plastic, however there is a felt covering at the bottom of it that things don't fly around that easily, so that's pretty cool. And here the entry badge, and also they have a sticker here powered by ACC because they built even the battery and the cells in Europe. Pretty cool thing. Then, what does it remind you from the form? And early old school gamers who played the very first Half-Life game maybe mistake this here for a head crab. You know, these small monsters, they in this form, then they jump you in the face, you know, like, yeah. Maybe you know, and if you never played Half-Life 1, you probably now think this guy is completely crazy. But tell me in the comments if you understood what I meant. Nevertheless, it's a very unusual form for a steering wheel. Why not being unique? I mean, it does look very unique, doesn't it? And also beautiful in this blue color, in this very trim. This is also an animal-free material, which is really high quality. Also, like the dampening underneath is cool. And then we have here the Alcantara trim. So you have base high-grade leather red seats in the base trim. Then here in the A12 trim, you get Alcantara, either with fabric on the inside, or if you go for the seat cooling, then you have perforation and also full Alcantara on the whole seat. And always when you have an animal-free seat, you also have an animal-free steering wheel. Last option, you also have animal material on the steering and on the seat. And then here, with 1.89 m, 6'2", still some headroom left. This is a fixed panoramic roof. It's an option. You can go a fixed normal roof or fixed panoramic glass roof. There is no special tinting that is visible, but DS claims that they have like a invisible tinting in it that prevents too much heat from coming to the inside. But we all know that no matter which technology is applied, there's always heat coming through glass roofs, no matter which technology there is. It's, yeah, just fact, basically.
On the camera you see it a little bit.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a little bit darker.
It's better visible on the
than
camera.
there,
It's,
passenger,
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you can see it slightly, maybe like this. This is, by the way, here an interesting function from the seat. So this is here a button for the seat massage, and they call it cat paws. Oh, the cat paw massage. Or, you know, maybe from some reels on like TikTok, Instagram and so on, you also call it making biscuits, you know, when the cats are making biscuits.
Who has a cat here? Send us some
Yeah,
pictures.
everyone who's a cat, send us some pictures definitely, and we'll post them next time. So, and when you activate it, let's see, yeah, the infotainment system has its slow moments. Let's take it that way. Now activate the cat paw massage. And I really have to say, it's really good. I mean, you know, these simple seat massage, which just use the lumbar function or something. And then you have these maybe like in an S-Class Mercedes or something like that. And here it also has these individual dots, and you can just dream away and think, ah, these are some small kitties making like biscuits on my back, you know. So it's actually really good. It's nicely comfortable. And yeah, why not using this cat paw mean for that? And important to mention here, another quality check, lowering the windows, and then we can see here we have the lamination in there, and it's not only for the front. When we lower the rear windows, we can even see that here. That is promising as for the sound deadening. Welcome to this extraordinary cockpit indeed. Highlights are the seats, as I said already. Look at that here, this beautiful structure then with perforation, and also the good build quality, plush as well, really nice. And here, this is the special feature. This is actually a neck heater in a closed vehicle. So usually we know that from convertibles, but here you can actually then activate 3 levels of neck heating in the infotainment system. That's a very special and yeah, rather unseen thing. Then you can see here this really stretched unit of the central display, and the sense of that is that the climate unit always stands freely here basically for driver and co-driver, and then you do the rest in the middle. Here we have some nice Alcantara covering also at the dashboard, and here these integrated vents, so it's a very clean design. Then you have this brushed aluminum look here, and on top of the dashboard it's also soft touch actually, so they really covered everything, materials, only the glove box not. This one here folds down in a smooth way. That's good, and there's also actually a lot of space there. Interesting is this flying middle console. Then you also have this graphic layout on top of that. This is also an inductive charging pad with some microfiber covering, like in a Tesla, for example. And then this is to select the driving modes, and you hear also there's a good feedback. nice clicking feedback, and you do not have to confirm in the screen. You can also keep clicking these driving modes through just from there. So that's very helpful while driving, definitely. And here on the right side, corresponding to that, is the volume control, for example, then for the passenger. And here, this is interesting. Either is a, like, you see how soft it is. That's beautifully done. Just in front of the shifting lever like this. We know it also from Peugeot vehicles. And then here you can fold up this and have a central cup holder and top part. That's not adaptive though. Folding down back like this. Then also really soft and plush for your elbows. I love that they paid attention to that. And then they have the split opening. This is not covered here. Small space to put out. And then I managed to film that earlier for you, or Leah managed to film it earlier for you. Here, in the front, you can also hear that. You can open or close the cooling then for this central box here, and that's of course cool to. That's cool to keep. Yeah, you got the video. Yeah, I think I handled that enough. But very good feature that we can also cool things definitely while driving. And here, this is either underneath the flying middle console, like a closed space, and then you can slide it open, have two USB-C chargers, so more space here, and then there are cup holders. They are adaptive, but I'm not sure who would really, maybe the passenger, but I do see some spilled drinks, because you put something in there and then you lift it up like this, and maybe not the best idea to put cup holders in lower part, but at least you also have here the top one. Maybe these for storage for drinks for later or something like that. And should you find that you cannot really use these cup holders in the front, then you can just make yourself more space, putting this here out, and then give this to the kids that they can play some Batman or something. And what more controls do we have directly which are not on the screen? We have here in the lower part, of course, for the hazard lights. And then here, this is like a hotkey for the vehicle functions. But you see here, this is like one layer, everything. And you have max and minimum temperature, for example. Yeah, most of the time you will use the stuff in the screen then. Then we have this digital mirror there, either like this, below, or then here with the camera, because the view to the rear is, yeah, not that large. By the way, there you can see Leah. I can open and close the trunk from here, and this rear view camera there for the there we go, is attached. Oh no, you can see the sun. I can also close it again. And there we have our camera movement back down again. There we go. Have here once again in the driver POV our Gordon Freeman Half-Life head crab design. He would be probably pretty scared right now. Then on the left side you have controls for the cruise control, and on the right side for the volume. This is the one famous new one button design here, however. Behind that are shifting pedals for the recuperation levels, right and left, and there's one more button here centrally. This is then the like this one pedal driving with one button, very interesting. And here we have the digital instruments, clear to read. You can also change the design. Here you can also click through the range or then the average consumption, and you do that here with your right finger on this column. And what's also interesting is that you have the digital speed then in the middle part, and you can change the recuperation modes, as I said, and there shows you in the lower right part here for the one pedal driving. Here these arrows, how they are there or not. And even more interesting, this is a last mode setting, so this mode is saved for you. What you also get, it's not flickering in real life, by the way, just on camera. Here, head-up display that also shows the map data. I'm glad this is the horizontal format, because by that the infotainment system still fits our camera here now. And then here to control the climate, at least it's always there. And then this is the more extensive climate unit, for example, where I can also activate the rear climate and so on, and the seat heating and also the seat cooling, for example. You also have this main menu where you can also activate or deactivate the neck warmer, for example. And here, for example, energy settings. You can see here also the display of the battery. The car there looks a little bit different in the animation here, doesn't it? But the thing is that, you know, it's not that fast. So I would yeah, I would expect a quicker infotainment system. Honestly, this is the car internal GPS. Yeah, and sometimes you also have functions where you need time to adjust them. So overall, it needs to be more responsive. And it also does in the car internal GPS here the charging stop calculation when you put in a destination. And this is, by the way, here the CarPlay integration with the Google Maps, Home CarPlay menu. And if you use Apple Maps in CarPlay, then this can also be displayed here on the instrument side. This can either be the car internal GPS, Apple Maps in CarPlay, or Google Maps in Android Auto. And very important to deactivate the speed beeping chime here. You can go in the menu, excessive speed warning off. Another thing is, usually when you shut down the vehicle, then it's on again. However, now the trick is here, the vehicle shortcut button. Press and hold, and then everything is off again. Now to the rear seats. First of all, the most beautiful thing here for the rear doors, also full Alcantara cladding here at the inside of the doors, and also here for your elbows. This is a really soft leatherette cover, so that's very well built. Here again, more of this focal sound system. Hard pack plastic then here, but also at the rear door we have like some felt covering at the bottom, at least, that things don't fly around that much. Then in this trim here, also full Alcantara for the seats, also with the perforation, and even seat heating and cooling. Isofix in the lower part, and also with these zippers here that you can beautifully hide them should you not need them actually. And you can fold down this here. Cup holders, yeah, they are more or less basic, but then again, nice Alcantara covering. This is here the separate ski hatch. Also going to show you that from the trunk then very soon. And then we have a separate climate unit here in the lower part. However, maybe it's because of the very first build models here, but this is not that reactive from the control. Seat heating, seat cooling, as I said. But we had some issues here with this control, so I hope they will update it then when you get it as a customer. Even floor goes through here, but single individual floor mats then to take out. 2 USB-C chargers and a 12-volt charger, and then some small cubby hole. Yeah, and then the thing is here really from the offering of the space, it's already quite a long vehicle. But when I'm driving, you see here is not much legroom left. For design reasons, they had a rather long hood. Then it costs you also some legroom here. It still works for tall adults though. And headroom wise, always here then, you know, when you have this fixed glass roof like this, yeah, there's some space left in here with 189, 6'2". So it works for tall adults, but not ample of space, let's take it that way. And also you can see the bench is relatively short. You can see here how my legs are in the air, and also it's a problem of almost all electric vehicles out there, no matter which brand, that you have a high floor because of the battery package that puts the knees higher like this. And usually like in a comparable combustion engine car, my legs would be more like this flat on the ground, you know, and so these are the limitations here, so to speak. So on the good side, the material quality that you could really feel enclosed here as well, that's pretty cool. And on the downside is not too much space considering how long the car is. Trunk or boot is at 620 liters. Let's check it out right here. You have this fastback opening, really wide, and 1.40 meters in width. Easily fits in vertically. Then here in the very front, you can fold it up like this for a cable storage. Not too big though. Then here the normal length is about 1.20 meters or 43 inches. And the total length, you see I fold already 2/3, but also the middle part can just be folded down. So that's both possible. And then here we come to a length of 1.88 meters or 74 inches, so pretty long actually. And we can also put this one here out like this, and then we just lift it up. Actually fairly easy, and then you can see the whole extent of this trunk area. So you can use it like an estate almost. And then here we have the height of about 28 inches or 72 centimeters. So well usable. Should you wonder, by the way, here, these things here still stick out, and you can feel that these are speakers actually. So otherwise, I mean, it does hinder you when loading in and out some very bulky things, but since these belong to the focal sound system, they might add more sound coolness. Let's start driving the DS8, the French automotive industry flagship. And we go through some different maneuvers, starting here in the city, soon going to the motorway, do some acceleration on the motorway. You can see I'm already controlling that very special steering wheel, and it is strange to hold on to here in this, it feels like from how you hold it, like a Formula One steering wheel, basically, but yeah, of course, always reminding the head crabs from Half-Life. You might also think about doing this. This looks more normal steering wheel then, honestly. Not sure if it's ideal from that situation. Yeah, we can do a first small acceleration, like 40 to 70, hold on tight. Ooh, that's already it. That was nice, so pretty quick. Oh, the Tesla Model 3 behind us is trying to keep up, but can, of course, you know, depending on what version it is. In the sport mode, suspension is also a little bit stiffer. You know, we talked about this. We have the 21-inch wheels on this one, and that, I mean, depends. I mean, when you have the potholes and stuff, uneven, then you feel it. It's getting rough. When we talk about waves in the road, these are evened out by the suspension very well. And although, yeah, you have this active scan suspension, which is supposed to put it softer when we are facing potholes, but potholes are still potholes. And yeah, they're rough when you have 21-inch wheels. That's always the case. So is there a comfort loss due to the big wheels? Yeah, cannot really deny that. The reaction of the steering is actually quite cool. It feels natural. Don't have to steer too much, so that's actually fine. Of course, when we drive a little bit sportier, it's also good that the suspension is a little bit silver, that Leah is not shaking around too much in that respect, actually. I have set the recuperation to rather low recuperation at this moment, and I just tune it with the brake pedal. And I really wonder how they made that through homologation, where all the manufacturers say we have to not use last mode and we have to delete it to a standard setting. And they said, yeah, no matter which recuperation mode you put in, it's just last mode. So yeah, I wonder how they could actually do it, and other manufacturers say they can't do it. I'm not sure who is wrong of them now. Yeah, very interesting, definitely. Here around tight spaces, by the way, you feel that it's a rather large vehicle, and we had some vehicles that were even larger that didn't feel that large. Very last review of a large electric vehicle was the Mercedes EQS, for example, and that one was course 5 meters 22 instead of 4 meters 80 or 4 meters 82. And honestly, the EQS with the rear axis steering and with the maneuverability and so on felt smaller. Why is that? Here you have a relatively large turning circle. So when you just turn in the wheels to the maximum, you feel like driving a truck, you know. So that's not the best thing. If you compare it to the VW ID.7, which is a direct competitor to this one here, of course, the ID.7 is much better in the maneuverability. It also doesn't have any rear axle steering, but it doesn't need it because the angle how the front wheels can turn in is like so wide. And that's actually not possible here, at least not here in this all-wheel drive version. But then again, you have to think about that the other version is a front-wheel drive version, whereas with the ID.7 you have rear-wheel drive as standard, and then you also stick with the rear-wheel drive that you have the more maneuverable front wheels. As for that, oh, come on, Kia EV9. Very rarely we, yeah, guck mal, that's
from Germany.
That's saying like in German, hey, look, ja. So here we go. It's fun to put it in the corners, definitely. That's cool, and also how it accelerates out, pretty smooth reaction transition. And here let's go through the modes. What about the steering here in the comfort mode? Pretty light. It always looks funny how Leah is being shaken up, and yeah, in the sport mode you have more resistance from the steering, definitely. Yeah. So let's do one more acceleration, 50 to 80. Yeah, that is of course pretty cool with the all-wheel drive version here. What I tend to feel from time to time, by the way, is when hard accelerating, and also when I'm like almost driving standstill, braking, slowly accelerating out. Not sure. Sometimes you feel some kind of friction. Like you are almost stalling a combustion engine, like a little bit like this. Not sure where that is deriving from, but I actually do feel that. And here back to the normal mode, then it's probably like the nice thing in between, so to speak. And here to the next roundabout. I mean, you get used to the steering a little bit, but I wouldn't say that this form and holding onto the steering wheel is the most ergonomic or most natural form. Yeah, I'm not sure. Some, of course, prefer this steering here. Yeah, I cannot recommend it. Might look cool for some. I don't think so, but yeah, it's of course not the safe way. The safest way is always 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, as for that respect. What we can already say right now here at 80 kilometers an hour, like 50 miles an hour, it's very silent, at least at these speeds here. We soon also head on to the motorway, dual insulation for front and rear windows, so that gives you a sophisticated feeling. So the material choices on the interior, and this calmness and so on, and also the length of the vehicle and the wheelbase give you a very sophisticated feeling. That's indeed what they achieved here. So when you think about also the other French models, which are lower in the price, all of them obviously, so they do achieve this flagship of the French automotive industry status because it drives more sophisticated than the others do, definitely. And since the French car manufacturers have never really focused on the most powerful combustion engines, this EV also lifts it to another level, you know, because now they have like great acceleration directly and they don't need like a V6 or V8 for that. So it can also catch up in this performance sense. So yes, also driving wise, in a way it holds what it promises, with some exceptions of course, where we already talked about that. Yeah, you see that in the roundabout thing, I'm not sure like, well, what should I do with my arms and my hands, you know? I think it looks a little bit weird. So indeed, the steering wheel form, yeah, maybe the thing was that the engineer was maybe like creating that steering wheel, and then from another dimension, a head crab came in the engineering office and jumped to the head of the engineer, and then, yeah, the engineer something like that. I have to design a steering wheel in form of a head crab. I think it must have been that way, right? Yeah, I think I asked the DS guys about that. So what I really like about this car is really this sense of sophistication still, like that you have this calm riding experience, and also with the, I mean, I could very well imagine that we go on a holiday trip together with that one here. Also, the seats are very comfortable in the front. If we're getting too hot, it's getting hot in here, then we can activate the seat cooling. If it's getting too cold, we can activate seat heating, and it also works together with these very sophisticated Alcantara surfaces. So it's to me really a front driver's cockpit car, and I would really recommend to Emmanuel Macron, drive this car yourself or be driven. You've maybe seen this special version where they created this car as an open top for the Le Président. Yeah. Better drive it yourself. It drives well, drives very comfortably. In the rear, you've seen there's this limitation that it's not that spacious in the rear, so gotta say that. And suspension itself is fine, but the 21-inch wheels, I'm not a fan of the super large wheels for the cars because they reduce the comfort, like especially when you're going in potholes and stuff, you know. But now the question is, how does it drive on the motorway? Woo! That was like 15 to 115 kilometers an hour. Really nice acceleration. Yeah, so good performance. Oh, it's like the Hyundai i30N makes the plop, plop, plop from the exhaust. We don't have that here. I think we could probably beat that one in the acceleration figure. And now we're doing some motorway driving. So let's put it to a standard motorway speed of 100 kilometers an hour. 60 miles an hour, and it's still pretty silent, I would say. Yeah, sport mode here. Let's see when the road is even, if we feel a difference to the comfort mode, suspension wise. I think it more makes a difference when there's a pothole and stuff, but it's really nice motorway cruiser indeed. So still remaining silent. And let's see when we put in the cruise control. I can set it here on the steering wheel. I have like some kind of feedback here, at least. Now also active lane keeping assist. Motorway is making a slight right bend. Let's see how that turns out. So if there's any like, oh, there's a Corvette, look at that. Always looks cool, like with the C7, I think it was, with the 4 exhaust pipes. Slight corrections here on the steering, but not that notable. So seems also sophisticated as for the assistance systems. So far, so good. We also have a blind spot monitor in there. Maybe that Mercedes GLC will overtake us, then we can... Oh, speed camera. So we should really obey the speed here. Yeah, probably now the GLC will overtake. Ah, there's another one. Is there like... there we go, yeah. So red triangle in the side mirrors then, as for the blind spot monitor, good to have. So everything we need. By the way, I do see these heating wires in the, oh yeah, hold on steering, sorry about that. I see the heating wires in the front windshield, and yeah, Leah has been driving Ford for years and they always have that, so she doesn't really see it, but I'm always seeing that stuff and it's getting me mad, you know. It's a great function, but there are also the same functionality with a foil in the windscreen, like VW has it in the Golf, for example. I would prefer that one since I don't see the single individual wires, you know, as for that. Yeah, but I think so far motorway also works well with this one here. And some sporty driving, some sporty corners. Let's see how it performs there. I mean, I already have my Formula One steering wheel position here, how I hold everything. Let's see how it, oh, now into the dark forest and the corners. There we go. Good central handling. The seats are also keeping us tight. That's pretty cool, actually. So good side support from the seats. Now nice S-corner. Oh, Elias already holding on tight. A little bit on the brakes. Low center of gravity. Of course, you feel the weight of the EV. Now accelerating out. Smooth transition. That's cool. Do you also have fun?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, when Leah is having fun, that's always the best sign. You know, sometimes it's that way, sometimes this way. I heard when I talked with a BMW engineer about this thing, like when you're getting sick in the car and when not, and he actually told me that it's about the frequency, like in the upright, downward way. That's very interesting, and each car has an individual frequency of that, together with suspension, wheels, seats, and so on. And then it depends if it fits your frequency of your body, how you feel that. And that's very interesting. It can be very individual indeed, and this is really nice. So it's a good cruiser. At the same time, does well in the corners. So yeah, I mean, the question is really, do you want to pay the price we're going to talk about for this vehicle in comparison to other competitors? But what we can definitely say is that this car offers a lot of sophistication, and yeah, it's also driving wise definitely worthy to be a flagship of the French automotive industry. Now, important second test here with the front wheel drive only version, big battery, front wheel drive only, and slowly starting or stopping, no friction. Why is that? This friction problem that you somehow feel is due to the rear electric motor when you have the all-wheel drive version. It's not in the front wheel drive version, so that's a very important thing. It depends on like how finely you feel things that are happening in the car, and if you need the all-wheel drive acceleration. But if you want the smoothest experience as for the electric motors, then it would be rather the front wheel drive version for you, honestly, because you do not have this effect. It's not a thing you feel like really heavily, but when you're like a strong car enthusiast and have like a fine feeling for what's happening in the vehicle. Yeah, the thing is here with the front wheel drive version, you have then less power, 7.8 seconds than here in the acceleration figure, but it's still really responsive, you know, that's the thing. Second difference is here, we have the 20-inch wheels. So this is a little bit better as for the comfort from the wheels. However, since this is the Palace trim, it does not have the adaptive suspension. Here we also have less driving modes to switch from, just Eco, Normal and Sport. And this is just changing steering and throttle input and so on, but not the suspension, since it's not the adaptive one in here. And the riding is notably different. And it's in a way rougher, I really have to say. So the adaptive suspension makes sense. So on the one hand, due to the smaller wheels mounted here, somehow better in that respect when you're going over some potholes. However, besides the potholes, when we have here some uneven road and the car is beginning to shake, this is a more direct feeling here. So if you want it even sportier, more in a like Model Y, Model 3 Tesla driving style, which some prefer, but others say that's maybe like too rough. So this is more coming close to the base suspension here. I would prefer the adaptive suspension because it's giving the car more calmness. You have the feeling that the car is remaining upright while the suspension works underneath. And here it's more like you're with the car in what's happening, you know? So probably the best setup would be adaptive suspension and 20-inch wheels. I think adaptive suspension and 19-inch wheels isn't even possible configurator-wise. It maybe depends on the market, but usually they combine the higher trims with the bigger wheels. Yeah, so don't pick the largest wheels and adaptive suspension. I think this is then the best combination overall for the comfort. And this here also equipped with the high-grade leatherette seats in the standard Palace trim, also with a beautiful blue interior, here white mix to that. Yeah, everything should be clean. And they are also very comfortable. So the seat ergonomics, the same, very comfortable seating experience. The only difference might be when it's really, really hot in summertime. Then of course, if you go for the Alcantara, which then also offers the cooling option, then you always have the cooled seats available, giving you more flexibility, like from the climate-wise function, you know. So if you live and you know, especially when you go for the glass roof, then it can get hot in the interior. Yeah, but both are really nice. And just to show you the difference, we can do some 20 to 60 kilometers an hour acceleration with the front wheel drive. Plop, that's it. I mean, it's still okay. Maybe even better for the passengers because not so much force is being applied. Yeah, the all-wheel drive version is more spectacular in acceleration, but this one here then smoother. And ultimately, even though the rear motor can be uncoupled with the all-wheel drive version, still the front-wheel drive only version will always be a little bit more efficient. So this vehicle offers some amazing, unique features indeed. Some things are also not that handy in controlling it. But what about the price? This is a very important thing. So it starts below 60,000 euros, the German reference price, for example. Small battery, entry trim. But then if you go big battery, all-wheel drive, a 12 trim, Alcantara with cooled seats, blah, 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 spec it very highly, you already are above 80,000 euros. And then, of course, people start thinking, wait a minute, should I not get Audi, BMW, Mercedes for that, and so on, you know? That's the thing. However, this one is also a core European product. And although, by the way, it is the flagship of the French automotive industry, it is built in Italy. Yeah, I mean, but that's also not an unusual thing because, you know, they have plants all over the world, all the manufacturers, the French automotive industry, not necessarily all over the world, but mainly in Europe, of course. So yeah, I mean, why not? If that was the best plan to build it, so be it. But definitely pretty cool approach that they try to make everything as localized in Europe as possible. But the pricing could be a problem. So the question is, would you buy here the DS8 for over 80,000 euros? Tell me in the comments. And of course, leasing rates, we have to see about that, how that one plays out. Now talking about the efficiency, like the real world range, just a quick comment here to the base seats with the high-grade leatherette. As I said, they are very comfortable, as for the same ergonomics. However, when it's hot in summer, with the glass roof especially, and the interior of the cabin heats up, can be kind of sticky. So when you have the Alcantara plus the seat cooling, that's definitely the best solution. Then you're always like in the best climate yourself from your body. Now about the consumption and the real world range. So we had conditions here, very mild, warm temperatures. Yesterday, like 22, today, like even hotter, 27 and so on degrees Celsius. So like, yeah, it's like high 70s up to 80s in Fahrenheit temperatures. And that's not a problem for electric vehicles. It's rather a problem when it's really cold. So then not too high speeds. And we did 2 tests for the efficiency. We are like here in the French-Swiss border region. You cannot drive too fast here overall. And once we did like, you know, driving different situations, also up the hill, next day down the hill again to have like even topography. And at the same time, the second test, we did some motorway, 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour straight. And in both cases, we had kind of like the same average consumption, which was at 18 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, which is 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. Would mean here for the big 97 kilowatt hour battery, a real world range of 540 kilometers or 335 miles, which is of course sounding quite good. Not too many cars that can repeat that. However, now best conditions, and if we would drive faster, like German Autobahn and so on, I mean, it's not the case for all countries, of course. You know, not all countries have like unlimited Autobahn speed and so on. But I would be interested in repeating that consumption test, maybe German Autobahn, 130, 140 kilometers an hour, maybe lower temperatures and so on, and then, you know, tell you more about it. What's clear is that there are some other electric vehicles that are more efficient or would be more efficient in these kind of conditions. But it shows you also that when the conditions are met and you're not driving too fast, you can score some serious electric range here with this new EV by the French manufacturer DS. That works very well, but it makes the impression that it's, in comparison to the competitors, maybe not the most efficient EV, but definitely not too bad. So that's like the first conclusion we can take from this range aspect. And then the final question remains, is it a worthy flagship of the French automotive industry? I already teased a little bit of that while driving. So driving-wise, it definitely is. And also from the interior, from the materials that are being used, that they use, for example, especially in this Agile trim with the Alcantara, even more Alcantara everywhere than anyone else, you know. That's actually pretty cool. So we have things that really stand out with this vehicle, things that make this car here indeed unique, and it drives indeed more sophisticated, and it uses more sophisticated materials than the other French cars, and even, you know, that come price-wise just like right behind that. The other thing, fighting against the Germans and so on, and also against the upcoming Chinese manufacturers, the question is of course always, which car do you really want to compare? And then the thing was, talked about the prices already, when you pay 80,000 euros for the car as it stands here right now, then the air gets thin, as we say in Germany. Die Luft wird dünn. That's the direct translation. Because then you might start thinking, yeah, why shouldn't I buy like our BMW and Mercedes for that? Yeah, I mean, they meanwhile also have some shortcomings when I think about the Mercedes CLA with 2 window levers instead of 4. Something like that, or maybe we see some BMWs which are not covered at the inside of the door with the felt and so on. You might have these arguments as well. Then we also see about the leasing rates and so on. But this car, of course, also has some stuff which is kind of like weirdo a little bit, like the steering wheel form, or also the infotainment system, pretty slow, also how to control things. It doesn't always give you a smooth experience as for the user interface. That's definitely a thing. And also that it wasn't that smooth when you're driving really slowly from the electric motors, and you know, that we had some kind of stuttering and so on. So definitely a car of pro and con, like also former flagships of the French industry were actually, or maybe also with the British cars. It's also something that makes the cars interesting in a way. What do you think about it, about this new concept here of, it's not a concept car, but you know, like the concept of the whole vehicle, that's what I mean, about the DS8. Leave me your comments, and now directly compare, for example, the VW ID.7.